Yeah, we're going to kick it off with that retirement question that you referenced from Seth. It says, is it wrong of me to quit my job and expect my wife to keep working? My wife and I are on track to coast to retirement in about 10 years. I have a stressful job that I want to leave now, but we would still need income to cover expenses until we can fully retire. Interesting question. What are your thoughts?
All right. So the phraseology there was really interesting. Is it wrong for me to expect my wife to continue working? I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the expect right there makes my spidey senses tingle a little bit. Is there anything wrong, though, with one spouse deciding that they're going to retire and the other spouse continue to work? Not at all. And sometimes it is the wife that continues to work, and sometimes it's the husband that continues to work. What I think matters the most is that you guys are on the same page. You have the same conversation around ultimately what goal are you trying to achieve and how do you achieve that? So, Brian, I have some clients here locally who are very dear clients of mine. And the husband had a very stressful job. And the job was so stressful that it began to have negative effects on his health. So much so that he actually had a cardiac type event where he had to go to the doctor. The doctor said, hey, you've got to figure out how you decrease stress in your life. And he said, well, look, doc, if in the vocation in which I work, there's no way that I can do this job and not be stressed. And the doctor said, well, hey, maybe you have to stop doing this job. So he and his wife came and met with him, like, hey, what do we do? And so we put together a plan that allowed him to step away from the workforce so that he could decrease his stress, enter into retirement early. And we determined that she was going to have to continue working for another 4 to 5 years in order to bolster their retirement plan. But it's what made the most sense for the household based on the overarching goal that they both had. So is it wrong for this type of scenario to play out? Not at all. Is it wrong for you to just say to your spouse, hey, I'm out, you're in, good luck? I don't know that I'd approach it that way.
So when I saw this question, by the way, what a headline that we set up this question with. It leads to the first thing that you need to do. And this is coming from a guy who's been married 26 years. Communication is the foundation of a good relationship and marriage. So don't let this be something you only bring to the Money Guy show. This is something that you ought to be having really a lot of dialogue, communication with. And then the second thing I wrote down was this is definitely a measure twice, cut once moment where you got to get it out of just the emotions of, and Bo, you made a good point, because if this is, I remember my father growing up worked in a very stressful office environment where he had a boss that he felt like was working against him, but he had a lot of coworkers who loved him. And it just created a lot of stress that I think did impact his health and all kind of other things. So there's nothing wrong with paying attention and being in tune with your emotions and saying, man, this job is stressful. I can't stay here longer, because your physical health, your mental health, and all that stuff is so important. But let's get it out of the emotions and get it into the analytics of the situation. So you've got to kind of figure out, well, what does the path forward look like? What does it require from my spouse? What does it require from me? Because maybe you don't get to completely come out of the work game. Maybe you just have to shift and go to a part-time job or change sectors, change careers. Yes, maybe it's not as profitable, but it also means that you're still being productive in some form in this 10 years that y'all are building up. The other thing I thought, and this ties into that measure twice, cut once, money's a tool, not a goal. Spend time on the why, because it really does. I think about Bo telling the story about the health issues and other things. If there is something like that that's just where Sunday night you're chewing on your fingernails, don't just let it just continue on like that for 10 years, because I think that us as humans, it just, there's a big cost when you just bury stuff and just hope it doesn't ooze out in some weird way through stress, through disease, through sickness. But it does need to be a joint goal, and it needs to be a joint path forward. Have good communication. And I think that probably your spouse will have the same concerns about health and other things, that y'all will figure out a path forward. And if this is one of those things, because if you're in such a good place that in 10 years you think you're going to be at retirement, maybe this is where you take the relationship to the next level. So you have somebody who sits between you guys who not only encourages good communication, but also helps you facilitate all the analytics. And that's what a good financial planner should hopefully bring to the table for you.
Yeah, I think a great tool, Seth, that you could use is if you've not done our Know Your Number course, this might be a great time to do that, because what the Know Your Number course will allow you to do is define what is the lifestyle that we want to live in retirement. What's that number that we need to achieve? And then what decisions do we need to make today to move towards the number? So it at least kind of gives you a benchmark around what the finish line looks like. And then you can begin to reverse engineer the decisions on when each of you get to exit the workforce. But like Brian said, communication is key.
Yeah. And it lets you know, are you behind the curve, ahead of the curve, on the curve? And then it lets you know if you cut your savings rate down, if you change your rate of return, if you change inflation. I love that. That's a great suggestion.